So many things racing through my mind right now. All the stories I could share about my mother. That I will not. But I want to ask all the mothers in the room, and I use the term loosely, anyone who has loved something and wanted the best for it, whether that is your garden and your fur babies or your actual babies or somebody else's babies, anyone who has just truly wanted the best for life, some piece of life. Because that is what brings out that mother heart, right? So I want to ask you, how many of you feel like you've rocked it, done it perfectly? Anybody? I'm raising my hand in complete, utter lying. Anybody feel like, oh, I completely lost the plot on this one? Yeah. And those of us who have mothers, all of us, have been convinced at times in our lives that they've sucked at it. Right? On days like this, we love to celebrate the gift of aliveness, which we truly would not have without them. And as far as I'm concerned, that's enough. That's enough to celebrate. The creative force of life itself, bringing life into being. I don't know that it gets any better than that. And yet, all of us have been shaped by these incredible relationships. And those relationships have never been just glorious Mother Day cards. Right? And so whether you have mothered or been mothered, it's a rough one. And I want to remind you that last week we talked about relaxing. We talked about having the courage to relax our grip, relax our control, relax our attempts at micromanaging life. And I can't think of anything that makes me want to micromanage life more than motherhood. I can't think of anything in my life that has brought me to my knees in utter surrender and given it over to God than motherhood. And have I ever been so humbled into recognizing that I do not know what's best than motherhood? The Serenity Prayer that we've been working with through this last several weeks has that line, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And the original version, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that cannot be helped. And I believe motherhood, aliveness, wanting the best for someone or something comes with a whole lot of prayers for serenity. Prayers for, I got nothing, I don't know what to do. Help. And that's what that grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change is really about. It's about coming to terms with our limited ways of thinking and being at times. Coming into alignment with the reality that when we are caught up in fear or anger or rage or desiring beyond what we understand, we have lost the plot. And I don't know where I got that phrase, but it's the one that is letting me cuss less right now. So go with me on it. It is that place where we have to just give up what we think we know. Give up what you think is best. And you know, in New Thought tradition and most traditions or practices where we are busy with manifesting and the law of attraction. There's this phrase that we will often use in prayer that is, this or something better, right? I am knowing and holding the vision for this or something better. And we throw that on the end, like as some little caveat, like maybe I don't know what the best thing is. So I just will throw this little tag into my prayer that, what I think should be, or something better. But if you are a mom, how many times do you use the something better part of the prayer? Because I can tell you, I am busy telling God how it should be on a regular about my kid. Right? Moms, let's be honest, we are really quite sure we know how it should be. Amen. And pretty much on a daily basis. Right? I mean, I left the house this morning like, this dude better have his chores done when I get home. Like, I'm quite sure I know how his day should go, let alone his entire life. And how often do I remember to pray for that something better part? To surrender how I think it should go to something greater. I was sharing with someone recently that my motherhood mantra has been, he has a God and I am not it. And I not only have to use that mantra on a regular basis, other people have to remind me. My besties are like, remember, he has a God and you're not it. And I think it's this great demonstration because in our tradition and the science of mind, we teach, right? The reason we are all here today is because I want you to leave today knowing that you are it, that you are a manifestation of the Holy Blessed One, that you are God. And you're not. And you're not. Because this thing called aliveness, this thing that we've all been birthed into, one way or another, means that we have this rich opportunity in our humanity to be these fleshy, messy beings who are full of the divine. And there's something greater. And there is this divinity, this greater mama who does know best. And it is often beyond our grasp, beyond our thinking. And it may not have made sense, the reading I chose for today. I should have, could have gone with some Mother Earth reading or something. But the reason I chose this Howard Thurman, because this concept that we must transmute our lives as the life of God. And whatever prayer we have for what we love, for what we want the best for, means we've got to allow for the best. And it is very often outside of our best ideas. Very often. And yet the thing that we long for, the greatest unfolding that we long for, that you want for your babies, that you want for life itself, that you want for humanity, that comes from the communion with the divine. Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, said, "Love alone can overcome fear because love surrenders itself to the object of its adoration." I love that so much. Love alone overcomes fear. And I would say rage, uncertainty, terror, grief. Love alone overcomes it. And He says, because love surrenders itself to the object of its adoration, which I would say anything that we deeply love and want the best for, right? We have adoration, which brings me back to that mama mantra. This object of my adoration, I am reminded every time I think I know best that he has a God and I am not it. And I am brought back, if I allow myself to be, from those places of fear, from those places of anger, from those places of uncertainty and not knowing how it's going to go and if he's going to be okay. And I am reminded, oh, wait a minute. He has a God and I am not it, which means I can surrender myself. I can surrender my limited ideas to something greater. And whatever prayer I hold, whatever vision I have for how it's supposed to be, I can let it go and let the something greater happen. Ernest went on to say, the will of spirit is peace, clear thinking, and happiness. It could have no other will. But I want to read you this in a different way. Love alone can overcome fear because love surrenders itself to the object of its adoration, the will of spirit. When we take a step back, when we take our hands off, as Clarissa shared with us last week, that she can't relax if she's clinging. And I spend a lot of time as a mama clinging. Anybody else? But when we take that step back and we remember that our job here is to be in adoration for life itself, for the one itself, for God, for spirit, for the divine, for whatever you want to name it. Every great faith tradition has some commandment that says, love God with all your heart and with all your might. Every faith tradition has some version of this. Why do you think that is? So that we can be good spiritual people? So we'll follow the rules? Or do you think it's the way, as Howard Thurman told us, to true freedom? When we surrender our entire beings, including all of our fear and all of our anger and all of our shaking fists at the injustices of what is happening in the lives of the people we love, when we take that to the one and just love ourselves and all of our crazy, when you allow those moments of fear, of terror, of absolute uncertainty and not knowing what to do, and you allow that moment to take you to your knees, that is the moment you are allowing yourself to open your heart absolutely, completely to the one, to the something greater. And Howard Thurman went on to say, it is most natural for me to think of prayer in terms of the open hand. My needs are so great and often so desperate that there seems to be naught besides my own urgency. And when we allow that urgency, when we allow whatever we are desperate about to be the thing that brings us to our knees, to bring us to that reminder, oh wait, I am actually not responsible. I am actually not the one who has to figure this out. I can take all of the burden And I can lay it open honestly, eyes wide open, heart wide open, in this place of faith and say, I don't know what to do. But I'm going to allow myself to be this broken, limited, small thinking being in this moment. I'm going to allow myself to be exactly as I am, and all of my feelings and all of my crazy thinking and all of those thoughts that actually don't serve me or my beloved. And I'm going to surrender it. I am going to let it be. I am going to bring myself in all of my ways, in my wholeness, which, if you remember, is actually the definition of perfection. All of it, you're crazy, the feelings, the terrible ideas, the micromanaging and controlling, all of it. Howard says, I must open my heart to God. This will include my own deep urgencies and the warp and woof of my desiring. The warp and the woof. We don't like to admit even to our own selves that we are warped at times and woof like an animal. But it is part of what we do. And it's okay. Because not only does my kiddo have a God, so do you. We have never been alone in it. It has never been entirely up to us and our limited thinking. Never. And when we decide that my number one thing, as Howard says, is to glorify God, and what I would say to translate glorify God is to remember the truth of who I am. To remember that I am divinely made and I have never been alone. I was birthed into creation in the craziest way. When you look at like mammals and how birth happens, we rank the craziest. We have no fur, we can't walk and eat or breathe on our own right away. It's bananas how we come into life. And yet here we are, these walking, breathing miracles. I remember the day I gave birth, and to be honest, my whole pregnancy, the labor, all of it, to me was like, I got nothing, I don't know what this is. I was mad at every woman who had ever birthed before for not telling me. And then I could not believe it when they let me take the baby home. I was like, they just gonna let me walk out of here with this thing, with this human who can do nothing? And now I have to do something? And I have no idea what I'm doing here? Zero practice. They don't give you a book. There's no classes. I got more instruction on driving. It's all bananas how we do this life thing. And yet here we are. Here we are. Some of us many decades past the whole weird birthing thing. We have never been alone. The miracle has been happening all along. Remembering this truth, remembering the sacredness of aliveness, the creative forces and elements that have to be at play in order for us to even be here. This is what we glorify. This is what we make first in our lives, to never get too far from the miraculous experience of aliveness. And on my best days as a mama, when I remember that, I don't care what he does. I don't care what he doesn't do. Who cares if he cleans the bathroom? We are breathing today. We have the great honor to be sharing this life. What an incredible privilege it is to watch someone breathe for the first time and then get to keep watching. I realized really early on that my only job as a mom was really to be an Uber driver. You just tell me where you want to go and I'll do my best to help you get there. That's it. I got nothing to say about the rest. Because it's not my job. Our aliveness is ours to do with and celebrate with and give ourselves over to however we so choose. And nobody has a say in it. Not even mama. Which means for most of us who experience motherhood or parenting, we spend a lot of time in surrender and letting go. Because we want so badly to paint the picture for them and paint it in a way that we feel good about. Because the other great honor of mothering is guilt. When we're not trying to micromanage, we're feeling guilty about not micromanaging. And imagine what Howard says, when I surrender myself to God without any conditions or reservations, I shall not bargain with God. I shall not make my surrender piecemeal, but I shall lay bare the very center of me, so that all of my very being shall be charged with the creative energy of God. For those of us who came into these rooms, came into these new thought teachings, discovered the law of attraction, the secret, or whatever it may be, this is what we're after. We want to be charged with the creative energy of the One. And we only get there when we lay ourselves bare and wide open and surrender all of the dumbness that we think we know. And he goes on to say, little by little, or vast area by vast area, my life must be transmuted in the life of God. And as this happens, I come into the meaning of true freedom. As I lay myself bare with all of my crazy, with all of my misunderstandings of how it should be, with all of my fear that means that I believe God is somehow missing, with all of my attempts to paint the picture in this one specific way, because I actually don't have faith that there is this something greater, that I could be charged with the creative force of God itself, which is peace, which is joy, which is wisdom and intelligence and all the things we want in those moments. But when I lay it down, that's the very moment I open myself. I am absolutely receptive to the divine that has been waiting for me all along. When I lay it down, I find my way to true freedom. Isn't that what we're all really after? Isn't that what we want for our beloveds? Don't we want the freedom, the peace, the joy, the wisdom, the love, the harmony that is the One? Isn't that the ultimate something better? And sometimes as a parent, it feels counterintuitive to lay it down, to give it over. Sometimes we have to give it over like a bunch of times a day. But it is the answer to all of what we are struggling with. He goes on to say that the burdens that I seemed unable to bear are floated in the current of life and love of God. This to me feels like the how-to, the description of what treatment means in our teaching. Affirmative prayer. We go to this prayer, we go to treatment, and as parents, we often go for our beloved children. But we go so that we can be reminded that there is this current of life, of love, that literally brought us all into being, because we're going to remember how freaking miraculous that is. And when we lay it down, when we completely decide to turn to the one and remember that God is all there is, and that there's only one life, and it's God's life, and it is living itself right now through my life, through my kiddos' life, through your kiddos' life, through your grandbabies, through your fur babies, through your plants, through all the life. And it is always working to reveal itself as more love. There is no other possibility, and when we turn to that prayer, we turn so that we can put aside any other false ideas we might be running around with. The prayer is actually not there to manifest our perfect picture of what it should be. The prayer is there to remind us that we are part of something so much greater. And we have always been. And there is no other possibility except that it is good. And even when it looks like the world is on fire, even when it looks like our kids are absolutely doing nothing that we wanted them to, even when it looks like they are suffering, because they will, we have this place to turn, to remember that there is a greater unfolding, there is a greater perfection, and we can rest in it. We can let it hold us and our babies. That's how great God is. And when we make it first, it is what allows us to be the parents we want to be. It is what allows you to experience the freedom you want to experience. So as we close today, I want to bring back one of the opening lines from Howard's reading, which is, "The symbol of my prayer this day is the open heart." And we're going to close with the Serenity Prayer, but I would like us to each first know that we pray this prayer with an open heart. We set aside what we think we know, and you open your heart and say with me the original Serenity Prayer. Spirit, give us courage to change what must be altered. Serenity to accept what cannot be helped, and the insight to know one from the other. So it is.